Whatever happened to Mercury? For the longest time since the beginning of Season 2, Mercury has been considered rather weak. He was among the auto-attack guards that just struggled with the new situation and couldn't really find his way up. Towards the end of Season 1, he had seen some nerfs, like a reduced range on the Made You Look ability and a decreased amount of time for enemies in air while getting thrown by special delivery. Additionally, he doesn't have a leap, which made taking objectives or ganking effectively much harder in many situations. When Mercury was already at his lowest, sprint was nerfed, the movement speed penalty removal from auto attacks was no longer existent, which was yet another thing not in Mercury's favor. However, all of that changed when patch 2.15 came alive and Sol got released. In that very patch, Mercury saw two buffs that didn't seem too big at first, but had a major impact. The first one was fastest guard alive, Mercury's passive, giving him up to 75% extra damage instead of 50% on the distance traveled. The second one was special delivery, getting an increased throw height from 300 to 350, meaning the enemy target would be in air a little longer. But we're not done, because there was a little patch beforehand that most people didn't even notice and that seemed even more insignificant than this one. Fastest guard alive also got a buff in the Xingtian patch, increasing the additional power from items from 25% to 30%. So why are all these small changes so significant when it comes to the balance of a character that seems to be rather underwhelming overall? Well, first of all, the new additional power benefit really helped his start. People realized they could build sprint on him and get away with it without having to get a red pot, while still getting huge power spikes for mid-camp congestion. Or, in other words, Mercury's early just got a hell of a lot better, and he didn't have to invest in risky things like other junglers would. This generally translates into his gameplay. Mercury was always a late game guard because he relied so much on crit, and when he got to late game he was scary at any point. This way, he got scary throughout the whole game. He had the early damage. Mid-game he was already potent enough because he didn't have to invest as much as others in order to come online. And then he had the bonus damage on his first hit. Special delivery buff also allowed more setup at early fights and mid-game fights. And overall, there was just so much on the plate that he didn't have before. People even went into Achilles' spear sometimes, especially in casuals and ranked games, simply because it's so easy to use it all the time in order to get the buff constantly and basically have it for every other camp, have some sustain, and have really good boxing. I'm not implying that Achilles' spear should be built on him. All in all, this led to him being one of the more consistent guards in the game, with a really strong late game. Therefore, Mercury quickly went to the top tiers, especially in ranked where he's not as easy to shut down as in a competitive fight. Obviously, competitive players picking him helped as well. Moving into Season 3, a lot of his buffs have been reverted. He's back to 25% physical power bonus from movement speed items and 50% on his first auto attack. Does that make him weak? Probably not. The jungle is full of farm now and he lives off that farm because he wants to go to late game as soon as possible. The map is much more open, allowing for more rotations, and crowd control, which Mercury has a lot of, is better because beats are nerfed. So overall, Mercury is probably not going to drop down by much. It's simply that there are other junglers that are much stronger right now, looking at Ao Kwang, but it doesn't mean that Mercury is anywhere near low tier. He's probably still above middle tier. I'd also like to end this video on an interesting note about something that I tried out. Even though Mercury's description doesn't imply it, speed buff actually gives bonus power to Mercury. You can see me picking up the speed buff here. I'm also going to auto attack afterwards in order to prove that it's not just the movement power bonus that you get. It is actually the movement speed buff itself that gives him additional power. With that, thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you next time. And if you haven't, feel free to check out the Bakasura and Nemesis part of this series. It's going to be interesting for Nemesis now though. Duke Sloth, out.